September 1944. A Panther tank slides through the morning fog outside Arracourt, France. Inside it, the crew believes the math is already finished. Their armor is thicker. Their gun reaches farther. Their machine is feared across Europe. The Americans have Shermans. Then the fog flashes orange. One Panther stops, then another, then another. By the time the morning opens up, the thing German officers trusted most has been turned into burning steel in a French field. And the strangest part is not that the Americans won. It is that the Germans kept looking for the answer in the wrong place. They looked at the Sherman. They looked at the Panther. They compared guns, armor, speed, and silhouettes. But the real weapon was not sitting on tracks. It was the army built around the tracks. To see how that happened, you have to go back to the moment when American armor looked nothing like a future threat. February 1943. Kasserine Pass, Tunisia. For the first time, American troops meet experienced German armored forces in a fight large enough to expose everything. And almost everything breaks. Radios fail to connect the people who need each other. Infantry and tanks move like separate armies. Artillery support arrives late, confused, or not at all. Orders crawl through a command system that has not yet learned what modern armored combat does to time. For roughly 2 days, American positions are shoved back nearly 50 miles. The damage is military. But the deeper wound is psychological. German officers watch the collapse and draw a simple conclusion. The Americans are brave. They have equipment, they have numbers, but they do not yet know how to fight. That judgment feels reasonable in February. And it becomes dangerous almost immediately after, because the U.S. Army does something that proud armies often fail to do. It treats humiliation as information. Reports move upward. Failures are named. Commanders who cannot adapt are moved aside. Procedures that looked solid in training are thrown against what actually happened in Tunisia. The lesson is brutal, but it is not buried. It is studied. 1 month later at El Guitar, the Germans attack again. This time, the Americans do not try to win the fight the German way. They do not simply charge armor into armor and hope courage solves geometry. They build a killing ground. Tank destroyers disappear into covered positions. Artillery grids are registered before the first German vehicle arrives. The ground itself is turned into a trap. When the German formation pushes forward, the first danger it meets is not a Sherman. It is timing. Shells begin landing not one battery at a time, but in a sudden, coordinated wall. Crews do not get a warning rhythm. They do not hear the first shells and then scatter before the rest arrive. The impact comes across the formation at once. That matters because armored units survive by movement. They disperse. They turn. They find cover. They change the angle. American artillery starts stealing those seconds. And once those seconds are gone, the advantage of a better gun begins to matter less. This is the part of the story that rarely looks heroic on a poster. There is no single genius standing over a map and inventing victory. There is a feedback loop. A fight happens. The army records what broke. The fix is turned into procedure. The procedure is pushed outward. Then the next fight tests it again, and again, and again. By 1944, that loop has become one of the most dangerous things in Europe. American artillery units are learning to mass fire with frightening speed. Forward observers, radios, fire direction centers, and batteries are being tied into a system that can answer a battlefield problem in minutes. The time-on-target method makes it worse for anyone standing underneath it. Separate batteries fire from different places, different distances, different flight times. But the math is arranged so the shells arrive together. One breath, a road is quiet. The next, half a field is erupting at once. And German armored doctrine, built around trained crews making quick local decisions, starts meeting an opponent that is compressing the decision window until there is almost no window left. Then comes Normandy. June 1944. The Americans land in France with machines, doctrine, and confidence, and almost immediately the countryside tells them none of it is enough. The Bocage is not just hedges. It is an old agricultural fortress system hiding in plain sight. Earthen banks, root-woven walls, narrow lanes, fields divided like armored rooms. A Sherman cannot simply drive through every hedge. So crews try climbing over them. And that is when the German anti-tank crews start waiting. Because the moment a Sherman climbs a hedgerow, its vulnerable belly lifts into view. The tank becomes blind, then exposed, then dead. Losses rise in a way no clean planning chart had predicted. For the Americans, this is the real test. Not whether they own a perfect tank. They do not. The test is whether a problem discovered by a frightened crew in one field can become a solution for an entire army before the problem kills too many men. The answer comes from low in the ranks. Sergeant Curtis Cullen studies the hedgerows and the wreckage on the beaches. German steel obstacles are cut apart. Teeth are welded to the fronts of Shermans. The result looks ugly, that is its strength. The new device lets a tank bite into the hedgerow instead of climbing over it. The bank splits. The Sherman drives through, the belly stays hidden. The German ambush position loses the angle it was built around. Within weeks, hundreds of tanks carry some version of the fix. A battlefield problem appears. A soldier solves it. The army spreads the solution. That is not glamorous. It is worse for the enemy than glamour, because it means the same American force embarrassed at Kasserine is now changing shape faster than German commanders can update their assumptions. Late July, Operation Cobra turns that change into a breakthrough. The Americans concentrate air power on a narrow part of the German line. More than 1,500 heavy bombers, dozens of medium bomber groups, thousands of tons of explosives in less than a morning. But the point is not just destruction. It is paralysis. German units lose contact, headquarters lose picture. Roads, signals, reserves, and local command begin to come apart at the same time. Through that broken seam, American armor moves. And this is where the myth of the lonely Sherman fails. The Sherman is not operating alone. It was never designed to carry the war alone. It moves with infantry close enough to protect it. It moves with artillery that can be called down fast enough to change a fight before it hardens. It moves with fighter bombers searching roads, gun pits, and crossings. It moves behind mechanics, fuel trucks, recovery vehicles, bridge crews, and supply columns. The tank is only the visible point of a much larger instrument. The Germans understood combined arms. They had taught the world terrifying lessons with it. But by the summer of 1944, the Americans are executing it with a scale and replacement power Germany can no longer match. Then the fog closes around Arracourt. September 1944. Lorraine. The German 5th Panzer Army tries to strike Patton's exposed flank and restore control before the front breaks open for good. The attacking force includes Panthers. On a testing range, the Panther looks like the answer to the Sherman problem. Its long 75mm gun can kill at ranges that make American crews nervous. Its sloped frontal armor can shrug off hits that would finish lighter vehicles. In a clean duel across open ground, nobody sensible wants to give the Panther the first shot. But Arracourt is not a clean duel. It is fog, It is broken visibility. It is unfamiliar ground. It is German formations filled with crews that do not all have the old veteran instincts. It is American units that have spent 18 months learning how not to offer the enemy the fight he wants. M18 Hellcat tank destroyers slip through the murk like predators. They are thin-skinned. They are not built to trade punishment. They are built to move. At roughly 20 tons, the Hellcat can shift position, fire, and vanish before a Panther crew fully understands where the shot came from. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion uses terrain, speed, and concealment to turn German armor away from its strongest face. Not front armor against front armor. Angles, flanks, fog, timing. A Panther that looks invincible from the front is far more mortal from the side. And once the American system has forced that kind of fight, the comparison chart stops protecting anybody. In one sharp engagement, 14 Panthers are destroyed. Over the battle around Arracourt, German armored strength is ground down again and again. Some later studies put the exchange at roughly 3.5 German armored vehicles lost for every American armored vehicle lost in the sector. Numbers like that do not mean every Sherman became better than every Panther. They mean the Americans had learned to decide the terms of contact. And terms of contact are everything. There is another part of this machine, quieter than artillery and less cinematic than a burning tank. Maintenance. Germany builds fewer than 9,000 Panthers during the war. The United States builds more than 49,000 Shermans. But the number is only the beginning. The Sherman is built to be repaired by an army that expects machines to break and expects them back fast. Engines can be swapped, parts can be found. Field workshops can do work that more complicated vehicles often need depots to handle. A knocked-out Sherman is not always a lost Sherman. Sometimes it is a night's work, a borrowed part, a recovery crew, and a return to the line. The Panther is a magnificent machine. It is also heavy, complex, demanding, and increasingly trapped inside a collapsing German supply system. No tank is superior when it has no fuel. No gun dominates when the crew is inexperienced. No armor advantage survives long if the vehicle cannot be repaired, recovered, and returned. This is what German commanders start to feel before they always understand it. They damage an American unit and expect it to stay damaged. Then the unit appears again. They stop one thrust and find another moving around the side. They prepare for a tank fight and receive artillery, fighter bombers, infantry, tank destroyers, and engineers. They are not losing to a single vehicle. They are losing to circulation. An army that keeps replacing blood, fuel, parts, orders, maps, shells, and lessons through the whole body of the front. The Ardennes proves it one more time. December 1944. Germany launches its last great offensive in the West. The plan requires speed. Speed requires roads. And one of the key roads runs through Bastogne. American forces hold it. The German timetable begins to rot almost from the start. Patton's Third Army does something that should have been nearly impossible under winter conditions. It disengages divisions from one fight, turns them 90 degrees, then drives them north toward the besieged town in roughly 72 hours. That is not just aggression. It is staff work, it is fuel, it is maps, it is discipline. It is junior leaders continuing when the weather breaks communications and the roads become frozen channels of confusion. Lieutenant Colonel Creighton Abrams helps drive the spearhead that opens the corridor. His tanks move through darkness and bad roads, not because the Sherman has suddenly become a mythical machine, but because the army around it can still move when the German plan needs everyone else to freeze. When Bastogne is relieved, the German offensive is not instantly over, but its clean timetable is. And without that timetable, the offensive loses the thing it cannot manufacture more of: time. After the war, when German officers described what made American forces so difficult, the answer was not usually awe of the Sherman. They respected some things about it. They dismissed others. What haunted them was the combination: the way artillery arrived too quickly, the way air support appeared over roads they needed, the way American units seemed battered in one fight and reassembled in the next, the way local defeats became lessons before they became habits. The Panther could beat the Sherman in the fight Germany wanted. The Americans became dangerous because they learned to deny that fight. They refused the clean duel. They widened the battlefield until gun caliber was only one question among many. Who sees first? Who calls fire first? Who repairs faster? Who has fuel? Who moves through fog? Who turns a failed tactic into a new procedure before the next morning? That is the real story behind the burning Panthers at Arracourt. Not that German engineering was fake. It was not. Not that the Sherman was secretly perfect. It was not. The truth is more uncomfortable and more important. Germany built a better comparison chart tank than America did. America built a better war machine around its imperfect tank. And in the clean world of specifications, the Panther could look unbeatable. But war is not fought in the clean world. War is fought in fog, mud, radios, fuel dumps, repair yards, artillery grids, frightened crews, and decisions made before the enemy understands the question. That is where the Panther's advantage began to disappear. And that is where the Sherman stopped being just a tank. It became the visible edge of a system the Germans never learned how to break.